Wheels up.
I
Welcome
understood.
to the
Good.
Catalyst podcast. Thank you for being here, Alexandra. I want to just introduce you real quickly, and then I'll turn it over to you. But we've been in kind of a mix of topics in these last guests and last couple of series. We've been talking a lot about managing change and managing resistance, things like that are kind of organizationally the way I see this, like kind of your platform and history feeding in and kind of meshing with these topics that we're on is, you have a history in security and like crisis planning. And I don't want to steal your thunder, but just kind of laying the
Yeah.
groundwork here. I think, that's the most, what your experience and when you think about organizational leadership, you're helping leaders and business owners navigate the times where it's change management on steroids and it's, there's no playbook and things like that. So I think this is a great way to come at this topic, and I'm excited. I know you and I have been connected for a while, and getting to know each other, and it's been a pleasure. So welcome, Alexandra. And if you will, just kind of maybe give us, the 30,000 foot view of your background, and then we can dive into things a little deeper.
Thank you very much, Hunter, for having me on. I'm really honored and glad to be with you today, this afternoon for me and this morning for you, because I'm French, and I'm based in France at the moment. The 30,000 foot view is that I've been a security and crisis management professional my entire career. And this is what I've been doing my whole life. And this even what I was planning on doing even when I was in high school, to be honest with you. So I'm not on that, doing this job by chance. It was really by purpose and an intention. And even more so that I actually decided to go into corporate security the next day after 9/11, because I was working in Hong Kong at the time. And in Hong Kong, there are plenty of high-rise buildings, as you may know. And I was, sitting in my high-rise office at the time, the next day, and I was like, okay, so I won't be taking the police courses because that was my first call at the beginning. And I'm going to help companies secure themselves and, deal with that basically, right? And so of course at very humble level, but that was my first intention when I was, I think, 23 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Despite having talked with you a little bit, I didn't know the connection with the 9/11.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I appreciate you
I
sharing that.
remember that very vividly, like most people. But even
Right.
me thinking I'm going to go into corporate security for that purpose, yeah, it's very clear. Still very clear in my mind.
Wow. And so, did you stay based in Hong Kong for a while,
In Hong Kong,
okay?
I stayed in Hong Kong for a couple more months, and then moved back to France at the time, and moved to New York to study corporate security at John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Okay.
At the time, there was no such programs in France, and even worldwide, it was there were still very few programs that dealing with corporate security, crisis management. So this is where I learned everything. When I spent there 5 years studying and then working as the first corporate security analyst and supervisor at Avon Products. That was my first security job at the time.
Yeah. Wow, that's neat. So
Yeah, that was
just kind of continuing down that path. What was next after Avon? Like, what was the next iteration of your career advancement?
That's well, because I've always had a deep calling, sorry, for the police. I had an opportunity to work for the French Ministry of Interior.
Okay.
They wanted me to work for them. So at some point, eventually, I left New York in my life there, and Avon, who actually at the time offered me a huge counter deal, but I said no, because I said, you know what, for just for a couple of years, I want to try and work with the French intelligence services, which I did, and moved back to my home country and served there for 4 years. But pretty soon I went back to the private sector because I actually thrive better in the corporate sector. This is my home. Yeah, the corporate sector is definitely my home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, yeah, I that sounds intriguing to me, just from like a national, security intelligence standpoint. I imagine that was quite the experience. So, what about after that? Like, what you came back to kind of the corporate environment? Sounds like.
Well, I came back to the corporate environment and went back to my, I would say, very, very normal security job, except that this is already when I was at Avon, I already started learning a lot about corporate resilience, I should say, because when I landed the job at Avon, this is right when we started having the H5N1 crisis. I don't know if you remember that, back in Asia. And Asia was a huge market for Avon at the time. So obviously we had to deal with that and make decisions. And this, at the time, business continuity was not new, but fairly new still. 20 years ago was still fairly new. So basically, when I came back to the corporate sector in France, working for other international companies, first as the deputy head of security for Lafarge, then as the regional security manager for Hewlett Packard, and then Hewlett Packard Enterprise after the spin-off. Just doing my daily security job, lots of incidents, lots of audits, lots of planning, lots of responding, and learning a lot. Because when I was at Lafarge, and I'm actually mentioning those events because those events, each of them, have been cornerstones actually throughout my career. Okay. The H5, first 9/11, then the H5N1, and then when I was at Lafarge, we had to deal with the Arab Spring, and evacuate a serious bunch of people. Then at HP, we had many other incidents because I stayed there for 6 years. So you can imagine 6 years as the regional security manager for an entire sub-region, especially during the time when we had lots of terrorist attacks across Europe. So at times it was messy, very, very messy. But these were all, cornerstones of my career where I loved what I was doing, and I learned a great deal. And this is also why I came to the conclusion that being an expert at this job technically was, I would say, easy. But it was even more difficult to make sure that we would serve our clients, internal clients, right? Well, by connecting to them and with them well, right? Because down the road, if we want to do the job well, whether we want to secure a site, whether we want to secure an industrial company, an industrial site, manufacturing site, whatever, or respond to an incident, we have to connect to the people we serve and work with. And to me, that was the biggest learning curve, I would say, more so than the technical one. And this is also why I'm where I am today, because to me, this is really the number one element and number one piece that we should all focus on as security and resilience leaders.
Wow. So is it fair to characterize it that and what you're just referring to, you're seen as kind of an overlay with HR function as kind of a larger, is that kind of what you're alluding to, like having that?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay.
I'm way too direct to allude to anything. Oh my God. No. But it's a very, very good question and fair question. Yeah. It's a very, very fair question, because at the end of the day, I actually got some training, coaching training, which is obviously very connected to HR. And HR, as a security resilience leader, is one of the key partners, right? You know that better than me today, right? And for good reasons, for very good reasons. So I'm not saying it's the same job, it's very different jobs, but I'm saying that we're merging. We're all merging into one when it comes to doing this job, basically, because we can't just consider that cyber and IT and tools are the only solutions to what we need. Even if the world is extremely modern today, even if technology moves extremely fast, at the other end of the computer, we still have a person, and we can't skip that. And I have actually some very expert colleagues who talk about this even better than me, that the insider threat, it comes from actual people. So yes, it's it always comes down to the people, always. So yes, it is connected in a way to HR.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it makes me think, so my full-time role is in email security. And what our core belief as a company and the way we position our platform and the way we've found success in the market is exactly what you're referring to. Like, you can have all the technology in the world, there's still evolving threats out there that are rapidly evolving along with technology. And at the end of the day, you still have that end user, you still have that human being as your last line of defense. And it takes a combination of a focus on enabling, equipping, and educating the human being as equally alongside with making sure you've got the best technology in place.
Yep. And sometimes, because I think, not that I know it's highly technical, I think it's a bit easier to deal with the tech stuff than with people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad you're just keeping it real, right? I mean, I think that's it's
because you can't control someone. You can never control anyone. You can control a machine much better. Of course, machine can go crazy sometimes, like we saw with the social networks a couple of days ago, right? And the whole world went crazy. But yeah, no, you can't control people like this. No way. And that's why I think it's even more interesting. And that's why it's even a stronger reason to look into it.
Yeah. So it makes me think, and maybe I'm stepping back a couple steps here, but you were talking about kind of that transition from earlier in your career, public sector, national defense, and being on kind of that nation state role, and then back to the marketplace. What attracted you to coming back to the marketplace? Was it the way you see things, like the framework for crisis response is more in line? Was it just like a philosophical approach to crisis, or what how would you characterize just the main contrast between?
I think, well, it was a long time ago. So at the time, I was not at the same place in my personal life, right?
Okay.
And one of the big things is, obviously now everyone knows, or at least everyone is aware, personal and professional life, they're all mingled, basically, right?
Right.
So at the time, my biggest interest was to basically travel the world, and the corporate sector could offer me this. I was traveling all the time. I was traveling to, I've actually discovered countries I would have never discovered on vacation myself, right? I went to Ukraine, to Russia, to Egypt, to all kinds of places like this. And that was my thrill at the time, to be very, very clear. That was my thrill. I loved, learning and connecting with the different markets and the different countries and different cultures. I also, what I actually love in the corporate environment, and I know that governmental agencies have that as well, but particularly in private companies, when they're run well, when there's a strong culture, I think it's really, really cool to belong to it, right? And we kind of had that at HP, for instance, just one example. it's once HP, always HP. Basically, we say that. It's when the culture is strong, you know, belonging to that, to a story like this. It's to me is really really exciting and really cool. And I think I still have colleagues working for companies like this, and it's pretty much what they say. You know, they're really proud to serve companies like this, right? And of course, I was super proud to serve my government at the time. But again, you know, just taking everything into consideration, the opportunities to travel, and to travel very often, and to be free to move anywhere I wanted was a huge factor for me at the time.